the West begins in Fort Worth, Texas, to around the globe. You are listening to Talk of the Night. And now, your host, Paranormal Phil. Thank you, and good evening, good morning, wherever you may be around the world, around the globe, or even in your own backyard. I am Paranormal Phil, and later on in the show tonight, we're going to be joined by my guest, June Ahern, and I hope I didn't mispronounce that, but we'll talk about that in a moment. But first up on the Talk of the Night website, under the story of the day, there's a story on NDEs. Peer review study explores NDEs. And for those that do not know what NDE is, it is near-death experience. Now, what happens to us after we die? Well, new research has come up with some interesting data about near-death. International and multidisciplinary teams or scientists seek to uncover in a new research studies of near-death experiences, are also known as recalled experiences of death, RED. Some of the things that the scientists found were signs of lucidity, anomalous activity, and electrical spikes, which are indicative of heightened states of consciousness by some experiencers. However, the study concluded that the research could neither prove or disprove the phenomenon. And of course, you can read that story up on the Talking of the Night website under the story of the day. Just click on the link below it and it will take you to the story. So let's get a little bit familiar with my guest and then we'll bring on June Ahern, author of 2 nonfiction on parapsychology and paranormal subjects, is a professional speaker, teacher, and paranormal investigator on a documentary series with the Haunted Bay, seen on Amazon Prime and YouTube. Her book, How to Talk with Spirits, Seances, Mediums, Ghost Hunts, has been optioned for a film based on a murder case June and law enforcement were on. She has conducted readings nationally and internationally for 45 plus years and now is retired from private practice. So please welcome to the show my guest, June Ahern. And I hope I pronounced that right.
Yes, you have. Thank you for having me on, Phil.
You're welcome. Now, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, other than what I read already.
Okay. Well, I'm a very normal person, I think. And I have an ability that I'm able to know things about people that I've never met. I have the ability to see other activity that other people can't see, spirits, energy around people, and places. And I just see myself, as I said, I was a child of the 60s in San Francisco. And I was a product of my environment, in case people wonder what I was like. And then I grew up in a kind of a really strict Catholic household, so very religious in that way, educationally wise. And I'm a mother and a grandmother. I'm just an ordinary person, except I see things differently than many other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm the same way. I've had my ability since I was 5 years old, so or at least that's the first time I remember being able to see and communicate with spirits. But I guess it was at birth that I got that ability. So I mean, I'm not knocking it because sometimes it's a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, because a lot of times I'll get a ton of spirits coming to me. It's like, shut up! I can only focus on one, or I'm trying to rest here. Be quiet.
I'm trying to rest here is a big one. You're like, leave me alone. Come back at a more decent daylight time.
Yeah. Now you mentioned about near-death experiences and everything like that, and of course I've read that story. But I think it said that you had a near-death experience. Is that when you realized that you had these psychic abilities?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We were always. My mother was always interested. There was an old television program called One Step Beyond, and we'd wake up in the morning and she'd give us the whole story before we went to school and read our teacups. So it wasn't unusual for us to be with somebody that had other ways of thinking. She used to make us swear we wouldn't talk about it to the nuns. When you go to school, make sure you don't tell anybody about me reading tea leaves and having dreams. And later on, when I was, barely even 20 years old, I was in a car accident, and I went to the other side. I went to the pearly gates, but they rejected me, is the way I look at it. It was a pretty serious car accident for me, and the near-death experience, when I came out of it, other than just physically trying to recover, I started to know things. Maybe we could call it like deja vus, but they were happening too many times. Deja vu, knowing things about, thinking about it, and then it occurs afterwards, which is not uncommon. People have them. But mine went a little bit further, knowing things of people I didn't even know and maybe knew of them or they were around.
Yeah.
And that's what started to occur. And then seeing spirits and all of that started happening to me.
Yeah, no, like I said, I had my abilities since I was 5 years old. I saw my first spirit when I was 5 years old. Went out to the kitchen in my parents' house and was getting something out of the refrigerator late at night while everybody was asleep. I was always a rebel. But anyways, I saw this little boy playing with a ball on top of the refrigerator. And, of course, being a kid, I'm like, can I play?
In the middle of the night.
Yeah. And, of course, I was too young to know that my mom had a boy before me and everything like that. But he died at birth. So now when I got older, I was like, I wonder if that was him. Now, my mom was able to see spirits as well, so it was not something new to me. And, of course, I mentioned this so many times. I don't know how many times I've mentioned it, but I always love to mention it and talk about it because I always got new listeners and new people tuning in, so it's always something new for everybody else. And I coined a term, I want to say about 10 years ago, because I've been in the paranormal field, well, I'm retired from the field, but, or I say I'm retired from the field, but I was in the paranormal field for 30 years. And I coined the term the Santa Claus effect, and again, everybody knows that's listened to the show, or if they haven't, have your small kids tune away because I don't want to destroy their reality with this. But because the only reason why I bring it up is because you mentioned you started having your abilities after the near-death experience. But I coined the term the Santa Claus effect because when we're young, we're told Santa Claus is real. When we grow older, we're told he's not real. Well, the same thing with the spirit world. When we're young, our minds are not corrupted by the everyday world, and we can see things like the spirit world, the same with animals, because their minds are not corrupted by the everyday world. But as we grow older, we're told that it's just our imagination, it's not real, and stuff like that. And that ability gets pushed from our third eye in the front of our conscious mind all the way back into the deepest part of our subconscious. So that's why I always tend to bring that up, because a lot of people think, well, it's only a select few of people that have that psychic ability. And it's like, no, everybody has that ability. It's just a matter of unlocking it.
Well, I think it's like any other ability. Some people have it stronger. As I always bring up, I have a friend that could sew an outfit in one night. And me, I could hardly sew a button, but I can talk to dead people really easy. So I like that you said it's an ability, because that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and I like I said, I've tried to help people unlock that ability, but it's not going to happen overnight, because there are people like James Randi who is a huge skeptic that no matter if a ghost or a Bigfoot or whatever stands right in front of him, he's still going to be like, nope, it's not real. But then again, you being in paranormal investigations and stuff like that, you know that a skeptic or having skepticism is healthy in the field, or at least that's my take on it, because it keeps us from believing everything that's out there.
Absolutely, and I say to the producer, I would say, before I started working, you have to research this. I don't want to just be out there saying stuff. I want to know, is there some historical information or some files on what I'm doing? Mm-hmm. To me, that's really important, and not, as you say, have people just believe anything I say. I don't want that.
Yeah, and of course, like if there's a noise in the wall, I'll be like, okay, could that be an animal walking around in the walls? Could it be pipes banging up against the walls, or water flowing through pipes or something like that? And so I look for that terrestrial explanation before I say that anything is paranormal.
I do too. I appreciate that. I think any person with that ability, or just anyone who follows it, as you say, you should have some skepticism. You should research it. Just don't fall into saying, oh, it has to be true. It's not a good idea to follow people without doing your own investigation.
Yeah, and like I said, I've been doing it for 30 years. I've been to many places, stuff. Now, how and when did you get into doing paranormal investigations?
Well, it was back, it's hard for me with time. It just seems to change. I've probably been doing it about 14 years now. A young woman that had, before I retired, had come to me for a reading, and she had relatives that came through. As a matter of fact, she recorded it. It's on one of the things on YouTube. I don't know which one she has. But she called me and she said, would you be interested in doing a paranormal investigation? And I said, well, tell me more of what you're talking about. And because I was, as I said, I was kind of burned out and I needed a little break. She said, well, we're going to do the Zodiac killing circles. And I said, oh, absolutely not. No, I'm not getting into that kind of misery, that unhappiness. And there's relatives still alive, and I don't want to contribute to their grief. Yeah. She said, okay, if I found another place, would you do it? I said, well, you find a place, then you call me and ask me. So she called and said, well, we could do the Condor Club in San Francisco. Now, I don't know if you know about it, but that's a strip joint.
No, I haven't heard of that one. I mean, the place I want to go up that way is Alcatraz.
I actually said, young women didn't go into those places, especially at that time of my life when I was a young woman. Young ladies, I guess. And I said, I always been wanting to go in that place. And it had so much paranormal activity. It was incredible. But we had to go like at 8 in the because the club had to close and such. And we met the manager. And that's how I got into it, was at the Condor Club.
Wow. I mean, the way I got started was up in Northern California. I was living up in Fortuna, just south of Eureka. Oh. And I was working with the California Conservation Corps up there. And there was this old abandoned farmhouse that was on the way from the place that we worked and slept. Not really worked, but where we had our dorms and everything like that. And we had to walk to town. And there was an abandoned farmhouse, and we would have to pass by it every time we wanted to go to town unless somebody drove. And it wasn't really that far of a walk, but everything intrigued me about that old abandoned farmhouse. Well, I mean, I heard stories about it being haunted, and this was in '92. This is when I first got into the paranormal field. And one day I was walking by it by myself. Everybody was in town. I just got a late start, so I was like, I'll meet you guys there. And I'm walking by this old farmhouse. It's on some land, so I didn't think nothing of it. And I saw these animals out in the front of the house, and I'm thinking, okay, it's abandoned, so maybe one of the neighbors had some of their animals get loose. Well, I shrugged it off. I walked right past it, and something told me, turn around, and I turned around, they were all gone. I mean, we're talking cows, sheep, goats, stuff like that, and there was no place for them to go unless they went around the side of the house. I mean, but I knew they weren't going to move that quick. And I was like, did I just see that? So,
yeah.
And people told me it was haunted, and I went in there. We went in there one night, and they brought a Ouija board, which, I mean, I'm not saying the board is bad because it's the intent that you put into it. The board's not bad, just the intent that you put into it. But they put that wrong intent into it and didn't close the door. And of course, I wasn't messing with the board. I was like trying to figure out where the hell did the animals go? What else is here? But of course, I had something attached to me because they were messing with the board. And of course, I didn't know better at the time. But that's how I got my start in the paranormal field. And then later on in life, the more I got into it, the more places I went. Now, you mentioned the strip club. Now, has there been any other places that you have been to?
Oh, yeah. Then the producer, Ying is her name. She says, well, how about this place or that place? We walked around San Francisco. I have to say that as far as the paranormal investigation, but for years I had been doing spirit work, having seances, and inviting people over for seances at different times. So I was accustomed to speaking to spirits, and during my readings, sometimes spirits showed up. I really enjoyed my investigation. Since the pandemic, we haven't been meeting. We went all over. We went over to Alameda here in California, across the bay for us from San Francisco. We went to Calistoga, Sharpstein Museum, which is really a great place to investigate. Just a lot of different locations. Let's see, outside. I'm trying to think of all the locations we did.
So they've basically been pretty much all California, Northern California?
Yes, yeah. We haven't gone. I know Ying has gone back east to something, but that didn't include me. I wasn't in that. I really enjoyed it. It was kind of my entertainment. It's an energy that you become accustomed to. And the one place that we went to, and I believe it was in Hayward, yeah. And I can't talk too much about it because it hasn't been edited. It's supposed to be going up.
Yeah.
Was the only? I always said to Ying, do not take me to a place that it's reported to have really bad entities, a bad place. I'm not interested in going. I had already gone to one in a building that they raised in San Francisco, and it was okay. I said, but that's not really my trip. I'm not into this really ugly, evil entities. I use evil, but low grade entities. Mm-hmm. And we went to that one, and that was the last one I did, and I wasn't happy because it was filled with negative entities, and it does affect you.
Oh yeah,
and like you said, attachments.
Now, me, I mean, I've gotten to the point where I've done cleansing of homes. I've gotten that good with my abilities, and I will go in with the darkest spirit there is and chase them out. But because I used to get called in before a Catholic priest would. That's how good I was.
Oh, okay, yeah. And the priest came to bless the house.
Actually, I got rid of the spirit without them having to come.
Yeah, I got asked to do it when I was down in Jamaica. I went into a place that was the woman was being attacked, and I didn't feel I'm qualified for that. I don't feel that I'm qualified to do an exorcist. You know, it isn't my interest, and it isn't what I want to get involved with. Because there are attachments, like you said.
Yeah.
You know, they attach to you if they want to, and you have to do stuff to get rid of them. It's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, the one that I mentioned at the old farmhouse, that one I think it took me 5 years, but I was just new to understanding my abilities and getting into the field and interested in it. Even though at 15, when my parents would go up to Alberta, Canada for the Calgary Stampede during the summer months, driving along, most kids would want a toy. Me, heck, I wanted a book on Bigfoot.
Yes, it's just a part of who you are. You know, once you get into it, it's part of who you are. It isn't just an interest; it's just part of who you are.
Yeah. Now, like me, I've been to all kinds of places. A lot of them private locations, which I can't mention. But there I've been bigger name places like the Queen Mary. I've had a conversation with the little girl in the first class poll. I've did an investigation at Tombstone.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, where I lived, I wasn't that far from where Morgan Earp, Wyatt Earp's brother was buried in San Bernardino. Yeah. And I asked the question, who fired the first shot at the OK Corral, because I wanted to know, and I had a digital recorder. And I was like, okay, maybe I will, maybe I won't get an answer. Maybe I'll get another spirit coming through. But I got the answer on the digital recorder, which to this day I haven't mentioned to anybody else. I haven't mentioned to anybody in Tombstone because I don't want to cause controversy with the Clanton clan that still lives there and disputes that. But it was what I got was Wyatt did.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And nobody else would know that except for Morgan Earp. And so I was like, thank you. That was a great answer. But I tend to do a lot of things on my own because if you're in a big group, it tends to... if you're doing EVPs, you tend to get like people talking in a different room, and then it kind of messes up, and you're like, was that paranormal or was that not?
Yes, yeah.
So I tend to like to go off on my own and do my own thing. Now, like I said, I've been to many places. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of David Ullman. Living
no.
out there. Okay, he lives 150 feet away from where the Manson murders happened in Beverly Hills.
Oh.
And he's been on many paranormal TV shows. I probably investigated his house over 200 times. Mainly because where me and a couple other people were the team that did the helping the tours out with the people coming on tours and stuff like that, to help them with the investigation, give them pointers on the equipment, tell them where and what happened in certain locations and everything like that. And so, I mean, that is probably one of the most active places I've ever been. Yeah, he's got a YouTube channel if you want to check it out. And I think he still, every once in a while, does ghost tours. I don't know when he's going to do another one, but I know he does them every once in a while. But going there, and I want to ask you this before I get into this. I don't want to talk too much about myself, but what is your strongest ability, you think? Because there's like clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient. empathic, intuitive, and stuff like that. Remote viewing. What is your you feel is your strongest ability?
All of the above. No, when I started out was definitely clairvoyant. I was able to see what was happening. I would see symbols and colors and people and such. And then I started hearing a lot more information, which made reading so much easier. We figured out symbols. I started, coming through, getting messages from the other side in different voices and such. And I'm not so much clairsentient as far as empathic, because it's just too much energy to deal with when it gets down into the body stuff. So I stay more toward the clairvoyancy and the clair audio. I love to do remote viewing. I have something on Amazon that I just did for my own entertainment during the pandemic. I miss, like I said, it's an energy, and I have to use it in some way. Mm-hmm. So I would say all of that. I do have clairsentient feelings at times. I do feel, and that's difficult, especially if I'm doing rather sad spirit communication. Sometimes parents have come for children and such, and that's very sad. And I feel it, but I have to quickly recover. I'm not going to be a very good medium if I'm sitting there blubbering away. Yeah. I have to stay clear in my mind.
Yeah, and of course, like me, when I go into a location, no matter how much I know if there's lighter energy or darker energy, I still go in surrounded by a white light to protect me from any darkness. And the darkness, like I mentioned, doing cleansing at homes, they hate that light. They run away from me. That plus I go into a location with no fear either. So I think I'm the only one that would go, like I mentioned, Alcatraz earlier. No paranormal team on TV. Well, there's a solitary confinement cell there. No team that I know of has ever gone into that solitary confinement alone, with the lights out, or the door closed. And of course, me, I want to do all three.
Yeah, well, a little bit of that, liking that action, that high energy action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, like I said, I go into a location with bright light, but for me, my strongest, I got all the abilities. I can see and communicate with spirits. I can hear them, smell the smells, see them, everything like that. But my strongest suits are kind of remote viewing and empathic abilities, being able to read people and everything like that, and or see things that are happening, and that's just been my strongest suit. So a lot of people say you're a psychic or medium. I don't like to use that term. I tend to more use hyper empath, and just because I have all those abilities. And just because of the strength of my energy, but I can see things happen before they happen, like Hurricane Katrina. I mentioned this last night with a tarot card reader, and before it even hit the east coast of Florida, I was looking at a map and I pointed out to my coworkers at the time. I said, "This is exactly where the eye of the storm is going to hit before it even hit Florida." And sure enough, that's where the eye of the storm hit. So
you're very much like a prediction.
Yeah, pretty much.
Precognition.
Yeah.
See it before, precognition.
Yeah, and like I was talking real quick, because I want to mention this before we go to commercial break, but actually, you know what? We'll probably do that after the commercial break. But we'll be right back after the short commercial break with my guest, June Ahern, as we continue talking about paranormal investigations, psychic abilities, and all that good stuff, parapsychology, and everything else. We'll be right back.
Do you have a talk radio, Facebook Live, or YouTube show and would like guests for your show but don't know where to go to get them? Well, go to radioguestlist.com and sign up today. They have all different experts in different fields, and you can find the ones that are just right for your show. That's radioguestlist.com. Sign up today. It's free.
To advertise on Talk in the Night, send an email to talkinthe.night@outlook.com. Talk in the Night has plans to fit your budget. Get your product or business heard around the world by the Talk in the Night listening audience. Plans include 30-second spots and banner ads on the show's website and mentioned on the social media sites. So get your product or business heard around the world today. Shop the Talk in the Night merch store today and pick up one of the many products with 9 different designs to choose from. The store has men's and women's apparel, drinkware, houseware, and accessories. Pick up a t-shirt, coffee mug, or anything else on there and support the show today. Go to talkinthe.night.com to find a link to the merch store.
Oh, where I come from, these are the things I know. Never let
And
your
now,
woman go.
back to Talk in the Night with your host, Paranormal Phil. Okay, and we are back with my guest, June Ahern, as we talk about the paranormal and parapsychology and everything like that. Now, before the break, I was going to talk about an experience, and this is leading into a question. This is why I want to bring it up, is talking about Hurricane Katrina. There was another place, the Omen House, that I had one of those visions. And, of course, my friend drove me out there. He introduced me to David Omen. So him knowing that I had my abilities, I told him, I don't want to know anything other than the murders happened down 150 feet away from his house. I didn't want to know anything else. Didn't want to be corrupted by things going on. So we're driving out, or my friend's driving out there. I'm sitting in the passenger seat so we didn't get lost. And I pulled up Google Earth and zoomed in on that location around David Ullman's house. And it came over me. I was like, there's a portal to the spirit world right there. And we were in Pomona at the time, so it's a good 40 miles away from Beverly Hills. And we get there, he tells me, tell David what you told me on the way here. And I stood in the spot that I pointed out on the map, and David looked at me with a kind of a shocked look, because Steve had mentioned that I didn't want to know anything of the location. And he goes, where you're standing, when my house was built, a 5-gallon bucket of water tipped uphill without anybody pushing over except for maybe a spirit. And like I said, I predicted that, or I foresaw that 40 miles away. You there?
Yeah, space and time. Space and time. It doesn't mean the same thing to people like you and I as it does to people that are not able to see energy. Yeah,
and of course, a lot of people don't know that the spirit world is not bound by our time and space, so they can show us things that most people won't see.
Yes.
Now,
and they could see it.
Yeah. They could. A lot of people just don't choose to. But the question that was the reason why I explained that is because I wanted to know, during your investigations that you've done, what is probably your most memorable experience?
Ooh. Well, one of the murder cases I worked on, probably some of the murder cases that eventually I started working on, spirits showing up and giving me information that, say, only the police knew, or enough information for the police to investigate. And it was never pleasant. One of the murders went on for like 3-4 years, and the spirit kept coming to me. You know, like talk about opening the closet door and there's a spirit. That was, I have to say, difficult in the way that I didn't want that information in random times. You know, I like to go more into when I'm working, and when I'm not. You know, I'm a mother. I want to take care of that. The one in Jamaica, I think the one in Jamaica is probably, as far as the real ghost busting and entities of the dark side, was very memorable to me because I was kind of just thrown into it. I wasn't really prepared for what I was experiencing. So, it's always stayed with me.
Yeah, so that was basically a location with the darker spirit, or as I like to call them, dark entities.
Yeah, and they were attacking this woman. The husband was a physician, and he took his wife to New York. He started, you know, I was brought down there by some Jamaican friends. I was commissioned to come there and do readings and do talks and such like that. So I was a guest down there, a working guest. And he took his wife to New York, and they had, well, maybe she has cancer. They couldn't find what was wrong with her. And there are certain people by cultures that are more prone to believing that there is other things going on than, say, some of the more recent, usually white people that don't necessarily agree or can't see it. They think it's superstition as such. And yeah, there's some superstition, but there are people that can actually know and feel that which other people can't see. And I went there, and I was in July. It was July in Jamaica. And I walked into the house. You know, in Jamaica in July is like as hot as hell. Yeah. And I walked into the house, and I just walked into a freezer. It was so cold, and the stench of the place, it was like garbage. The house was very clean, but you can often smell these dark entities. They give off an odor, really serious odor. Yeah. And there was his wife, and if it didn't happen to me, this is the skeptic part. I always say, if it didn't happen to me, I probably wouldn't believe it for somebody else very easily. Yeah. And they started hitting me, you know, with like, you know, when you roll up a kind of a wet towel. My brothers used to do this to us sisters. When you roll up a wet towel and you snap it at somebody.
Yeah, I know all about that. See, I grew up in the 70s, but before people were so consumed by phones and internet and everything else. We actually played outside. So
yeah, we played out. We got dirty, and you better be home for having dinner, or you weren't going to eat.
Yeah.
You know, when that table is cleaned off, there was nothing you were eating after that.
Yeah.
You know, and anyway, it was a really intense experience for me, not ever having experienced it before. Walking right into it, and I just yelled at them. You know, stop it! Just stop it! Because they were hitting me and pinching me. I should have took photographs of my bruises. But at that time, this was the early 90s. I just didn't think about it. We didn't have cell phones. You had to carry a camera around if you were going to take pictures.
Yeah, the old 35 millimeter that you had to roll up every time that you took a picture, and then you had to take it to a place, have it developed, and wait about a week for it to come back.
Yeah, you took it down to the store. If you were lucky, or if you put a rush in, you might get it in a couple of days, but you had to pay extra for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that one was most interesting.
Yeah, I remember those days having to carry around a couple of those cameras, carry around a big old tape recorder, have the tape ready to go, and switch it out or flip it over to record on the other side and everything else. That's
Oh, yeah.
How things got started when I was getting started in the field. Now, of course, today there's all digital cameras, your cell phones,
Yeah.
digital recorders, everything else. And, of course, I'm getting into that technology now, too. So, but my biggest piece of equipment that I like to use is myself.
Yeah.
Because my mind can, with the skepticism, can easily kind of rule out things that are terrestrial in nature or the paranormal in nature.
And they can play with you. Paranormal, entities and spirits, they can play with you. And they can cause all kinds of little ruckus. But there are those that investigate with all the equipment. And when I work with Ying, they have it's called Alameda Paranormal Investigators. They go in with all the equipment first. And they do it. Then I come in at a later date, or vice versa. But we don't tell each other anything until it's all over and done with, and then we compare notes.
Yeah, because you're probably like me. When you go to a location, you do not want to know anything about that location because it's going
to
corrupt your mind and everything and your thoughts on the location.
Absolutely. And I don't want to talk about it. And anybody wants to give me information, I say stop. I don't even want to, and I tell you all the time, don't even tell me exactly where we're going until I'm going to meet you there. They give me an address, then I'll show up. I don't want to be influenced by any outside news or information or anybody who has an opinion. I tell people all the time, don't say anything. Stop talking.
Yeah. Well, like me, I like to look at the places that I'm going, but I don't like to read too much into them, like Tombstone, or even here in Fort Worth, Texas, the Stockyards, which is highly haunted, and everything like that, which I'm going to be live streaming from there this Saturday on a ghost tour.
Cool.
But I go down there every once in a while to talk with the spirits and everything like that. I'm back by one spot where hardly anybody walks unless they're on the ghost tours, and I'll just be back there and having conversations with the spirits. It's just that interest in talking with the spirits and understanding what their life was like during that time. And of course, me, I have an interest with the Old West and the Civil War. So, I mean,
yeah, me too.
It's a perfect spot to be in an Old West town, basically.
My son, when he was little, he actually gave me information about one of the murder cases. He was so right on, too. But he was only like about 4, so I recorded it. I took credit for it, though. But he told me when he was little, he says, when I lived before, and he started to describe the Confederate soldier uniform, and he told me how we didn't drink cow milk, and he had allergies to milk, from birth on. And he said, we drank goat milk. And this is a little kid. He started when he was 3.5. And he told me all about his lives, different lives. And it was always lives of being a warrior. And we would go to the library and I'd get out books and he'd point to pictures. Like, here I was, here I am. Talked about scurvy. He says, all our teeth up here, and he touched his gums. We didn't have things like oranges, so you didn't have teeth. They fell out. I'm telling you, this is a 3.5-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And so the psychic
like
energy is all around us.
Yeah, it sounds like he was describing a past life, which a lot of people would, like I mentioned earlier, discount that away as, it's just their active imagination as a little kid. And no,
right.
Listen to them. There is truth in it.
Yes, listen to them. And luckily he picked the right mother, which I didn't say overly encourage it, but I always listened to him. So yes, parents, I would really hope that there are parents when their children's like that they at least listen to them.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, my mom was able to see spirits, so she kind of reinforced and validated my abilities. So that's why it only strengthened as I grew older. Now,
Yeah, that's good. You picked the right mother too.
Yeah. Now, talking about that darker spirit in Jamaica and everything. Now, is there any place that you will not go back to because of the activity?
Because, I told you the place in Hayward that I won't go back to. It was beyond cruel and ugly. As a matter of fact, I'm not a frightened medium. I don't go in there and go, oh, oh. And as I said to the one cameraman, listen, if I'm afraid of this, you should be afraid of it. Because I don't have that fear that people, and I don't care for those programs where people that are supposedly doing investigations start screaming and yelling. I'm like, why? Why are you doing it then?
Yeah.
And that place in Hayward, I can't talk too much about it, like I said, because it's not been edited or put up online yet. But it was really horrible. As a matter of fact, it was so bad, and I was attacked there. And I started to feel like, thank God there was this young camera sound guy, and I had to hold on to his arm. He had to help me out of the place. I almost fainted, just like when I was in Jamaica for a while. That's how intense it was. And so I would never go back there to that place. And not just me, there were workers at this business place, and they had been afraid. That's why they called in somebody like me. They said, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Pallets would get up and stand up, just stand himself up. All kinds of stuff was happening there.
Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't get called for something like that.
It was really something.
But yeah, no, there's one case that I've never been back since, just because it did affect me a little bit, but not as bad as it would somebody else. And it was a private case. We called it the Demon Behind the Garage case. And the people were messing with the darker side of the occult. And they had upside down crosses with burlap sacks wrapped around with blood on them and stuff like that. And I got rid of what was there temporarily, and I told them, it's up to you to keep it away. I can chase it out, but I'm not going to be able to get rid of it completely unless you keep it out. And they got back into it, so we got called back by the client who her sister lived in the house, and when we went back, her sister was out on the porch sweeping up boxes out there, and I guess she was kicking out the client that we were there to see. But she was nice as could be, and we had another lady that was psychic with us from our team. It was just three of us there to talk with the client before actually going in and doing what we do. And we're out in the middle of the street, public street, talking to this lady, and she was nice. She said, you can wait there and everything like that. She'll be back, but she's going to be kicked out of the house. And then out of the kind of the corner of my eye, not really the corner of my eye, but I saw these red glowing eyes from behind the garage, and our other psychic that was there, she didn't notice this, but I did, and it zipped right over into this lady, and instantly her demeanor changed. She's like, get the heck out of here, you're not welcome here. And I knew exactly what happened, and I explained it to him after we pulled off, but we met up with a client a little bit of, in downtown Riverside. It wasn't too far from there. And we met up at a little coffee shop, and we were talking with the client, and as soon as we started talking, this darker entity started trying to make me physically ill. It was doing its best. It knew it could. It wanted me away from there because it knew exactly if I go back, it's going. Again, but I was like, we're not going back there. I mean, if they're not going to keep it away, then I can only do so much.
Right.
So that's one place I'll never be back. Yeah, that's one place I'll never be back. Now, another place is next door to David Ullman's house. The house that's next to him was there on the night of the murders. So his house has that light, upbeat, fun spirits where they like knocking over figurines just to tell people, hey, I'm here. But the house next door had that darker energy to it. And we're there doing one of the tours, helping out with the tours. I was always the tech guy out paying attention to like 24 different cameras, 16 or 24 cameras, depending on what we had the setup for. And we had rented out the house next door, and this lady was new to her abilities like I was in 92. And she came out, and she was physically ill, and somebody said, somebody go get her water. She's not feeling good. Because she came out of that house with that dark energy. And I said, okay, let me get up and do this. So I walked over to her. I said, stand up. Here's what I want you to do. Close your eyes. Take a couple of deep breaths. And then imagine the brightest white light that you can imagine. And instantly after she did that, she started feeling 100% better. So I pretty much projected some of that white light off of me to help her. But there's that darker energy. Now, I slept in that house overnight, so twice in a row. So it didn't really bother me, but it did kind of affect the other person that slept in that house because she was not as strong as me.
Yeah. People absorb it. Remember we talked about, you said, well, what do you think your skills are, your abilities? People talk about, especially nowadays, you hear a lot about, I'm an empath, and I say, that's a really hard place to be. You might want to start thinking of how you could distance yourself a little more from being that way, because if you're picking stuff up, it can make you sick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's no fun when they start making you physically ill. Like I said,
yeah.
It tried, and it was a strong, darker entity. But it as soon as I moved away from there and I said, we're done, we're not going back, then it decided, okay, well, then I don't have to worry about him. But it just was not having it. It did not want me around because it knew if I was coming back, I was chasing it back out of there.
Yes. Yeah, they don't like people like us. If they're there causing mayhem or whatever, people like us, we show up and they're like, oh, no, go away.
Yeah, well, see, like your Catholic, my guest last night was grew up in a Baptist family and everything like that, and uses that type of religion stuff, whereas me, I'm Wiccan, so I got my own different chants, my different religious beliefs and everything like that, so I have a different way of getting rid of these spirits, and I use a lot of Mother Nature because Wiccans are more Mother Nature, Earth's magic practitioners. So
that's right, yeah.
I think they hate that too, in a sense too. Now, what are some of the things that you have seen? Like, have you seen apparitions, moving objects, voices, hear noises, all the above?
Oh, yeah. All of the above. We were having a seance one time, and there was a chair not around the table. It was a rocking chair. And all of a sudden we were talking about a murder. A guest had wanted information from a son that had been murdered. And that chair just started rocking like crazy, and it startled everybody. I kind of laughed. Not a good time to laugh when you're talking about somebody's son being murdered. But it was like, whoa, look at that.
Yeah, interesting.
I hate to say, as I said before, kind of entertained by it all. I entertain myself. It's an energy thing. Another time we were doing a seance, and this women started screaming, whoa, whoa, and like a hand was touching their thigh, going up their leg. And I said, well, there's a man here, and his name is, he's a sailor. And the woman that owned the house said, well, that was my great uncle. His name was Salty. And he was a naval guy, like a longshoreman, not a longshoreman, what do you call it? A guy who goes to sea, merchant marine. And he loved the ladies. And there he was, and women were screaming, jumping up out of their seats. Again, I thought that was really funny.
Yeah. Now,
they were not as amused as I was.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I want to ask this question, and I want to ask something else, but that one's going to take a little bit longer, so I want to wait till after the commercial for that one. But this one is kind of a quick question. Have you used, what type of equipment have you used on investigation? Because like I said, I've used a lot of different pieces of equipment, but personally, I prefer my own abilities over every piece of equipment that I have.
Yeah, I don't really get into the equipment. I leave that to the, to the producer to provide it all. Although I went to a talk before the pandemic, I guess everything was before that, and they said the very old-fashioned, maybe those little small tape recorders, you could put them in your pocket, really tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah, they said that they found that to be the best to pick up sounds. Well, I used to have one, and then suddenly I found it again. And so I've been dying to use it somewhere to see what I could pick up.
Yeah,
I don't get involved with the equipment.
It seems like some of the older equipment is the best. This new stuff, there's so many things, like with photos nowadays or video, they can easily be edited. Back then, it would take almost like an act of God just to edit a photo or edit a video or edit a sound recording, even though sound was a little more easier to manipulate with people whispering. But as far as photos and video, it was more difficult back then.
Yeah. Now they have all kinds of equipment. You talked a little bit about doing your work. You don't want a bunch of people. Anytime people want to start saying, could we bring somebody, or my friend would like to come along, if they're from the cast, I would say, I don't want anybody around me, and I certainly don't want anybody talking. Mm-hmm. People get into it and they want to start talking. And as you said, are you picking up them whispering in the other room, or are you actually picking up some sort of paranormal voices?
Yeah, and see, that's the same thing with Omen House when he does tours, is he's got at least 20 people there, and people are in different rooms, back-to-back rooms and stuff like that, and it's easy to pick up sound and everything. And, of course, microphones, like even my microphone, even with my door closed, will pick up sound from the neighbors across the way, and they got their door closed. So it's like that equipment's going to pick up the slightest sound. You could be like, hey, you listen. And it will pick up that whisper and be like, okay, was that a ghost or not? So that's why when I was there doing the tours, I loved being up watching the cameras, because I didn't have to deal with that. All I had to do was watch the video, make sure nothing got pushed over or somebody got attacked or anything, which never happens except for Zach Baggins with Ghost Adventures. And you mentioned how you hate when people go in and scream at the spirits and everything like that, and he does that quite a bit.
Do you ever get that when I do my investigation, that there's somebody else there, I'm picking up spirits around that person rather than the location. Mm-hmm. So I have to be very careful of, they can edit it out, but if there's somebody in the building, like we went over to an Eagle building in Alameda in California, and there were some of the staff there. They had to let us in, managers, and they were interested too. And I go up there and I start talking to this lady about her father and all this stuff, rather than focusing on what I knew was the spirit there. Usually I always know what I'm going to encounter. You know, I get this feeling. I don't know the location, but the spirit of that location, spirits start coming to me before I even get there. Because I just open up and say, well, let me see it so I can get my work done before I even get in the building.
Yeah.
Do you ever find that you start reading for people that aren't necessarily attached to the location?
Oh, yeah. I mean, plenty of times, like the Omen House, we would do seances near the end of the night on the 3rd level. And our psychic would do the seances. That was not really my thing. I would be up at the cameras watching it, but that was not my thing. But after everything was over, I would go down there because I knew, and you probably, I'm sure you know this feeling all too well, when you're doing a reading and there's other people around, their spirits there with them tend to come to you as well, and it gets overwhelming when you got about 100 freaking spirits around you going, hey, get my message out, get my message out, get my message out. It's like, shut up, I'm only focused on this one.
Yeah, it's kind of like that movie, Whoopi Goldberg, which was in Ghost, and they had to line up and take a number. When you open that door to the spirits, boy, they just start flooding through, you know, and it's like, take a number, you guys, hold on. Yeah. Everybody can't talk at one time.
Yeah, or the Beetlejuice scene where they had to pull out a number. You'll be 5 million later. But yeah, but we're going to take another...
I love that movie.
We're going to take a commercial break here, but we'll be right back after the short commercial break and phone calls with my guest, Joan Ahern, as we talk about parapsychology and the paranormal. We'll be right back.
Hey, are you alright? They asked me, sitting with a glass of whiskey, eyes glazed over, looking at the skyline. Said, friend, you know I love this city, but sometimes you have to excuse me. I let myself get lost up in my mind. And I go to my countryside, take some time, remember the night, sitting by the fire, leaning back, watching the red sky sunset. Let those bare feet sway and sweep.
The weather is getting warmer and people are out and about. Well, if you love ghost hunting, now is the time to pick up some new gear. GhostStock.com has a wide variety of equipment to choose from, and one of those items is Blue Buddy. He's back. The talking bear every investigator wants on their team. Click on the Ghost Stop banner ad at the top of the show's website and pick up your Blue Buddy today. Go to spring.com and sign up to create your own design or choose from a design from one of the many creators on there. Spring has ways to integrate your store on social media, custom stores, and they have digital and physical products. While you're there, check out the Talk in the Night merch store. To get started with Spring today, click on the banner ad on the Talk of the Night website. Go to the show's website and click on the links for each of my guests and purchase a book or other product that they may be promoting. Without them, there would be no Talk in the Night. Whether you're interested in the paranormal, conspiracy, technology, health, relationships, or any other topic the show covers, my guests have something for you. Check it out today on talkingthenight.com.
Don't wait for me, honey. Don't wait. 'Cause I'm always heading your way.
Call to the show, Skype Talk in the Night, or by phone at 817-717-1280. Now back to Talk in the Night with your host, Paranormal Phil. Okay, and we are back with my guest, June Ahern, as we talk about parapsychology and the paranormal. Now, the Skype lines are open. You can use the Skype name Talk in the Night or by phone at 817-717-1280. Or if you go to Spreaker.com, if you're listening there, sign up for a free account. It don't cost a thing. You don't have to record nothing. And you can chat with me during the show and ask your questions there as well. There's a chat. When you go to the episode, it'll say live, and there'll be a chat bar, and you can chat with me. Or if it's recorded, you can always leave a comment there, and we'll talk about it another day. But if you want to ask my guest a question, feel free to do it that way as well. Now, before the break, I forgot what I was going to talk about after the break, so we're going to take it in a different direction. I hate when that happens.
But I hate when that happens too.
But I want to get into kind of away from the investigating part and talk about what you're doing now as far as speaking on the subject of the paranormal. So tell us what you do about speaking on the paranormal.
Well, I started giving Zoom classes. Before even that, I've been teaching since the 1980s. I teach the tarot, and I teach ESP, different subjects like that, spirit guides. And so I took those and I started giving some talks monthly for a long time. Well, during the whole 2 years. And so I want to educate people now that I've retired from my private practice. I'm pretty much retired. I say, my husband always laughs at me. He says, well, you're awfully busy for being retired. Yeah. And I feel like my path right now is to teach people how to be in tune to their own psychic abilities, to their own intuitive abilities to start out with, to trust themselves. Because when you begin to listen to yourself, you make better choices. Even if they don't seem better at the time, they are better. I have taught classes on spells and how to use them productively and not be superstitious, or how to understand how they work, because it's all energy. I, like you, I'm a Wiccan, and that's where I'm at right now. I really want to do a class for kids, and I don't want the parents on the Zoom talk. They can get on with me a half hour early, because I want kids to talk about what I used to teach kids long ago for kids, and it was fabulous. I'd rather teach kids than adults anytime, because I'm not teaching them. I'm just encouraging and putting meaning to what they're experiencing. With adults, you got that doubt and stuff going on. So that's what I'm doing. I'm doing talks on ESP and telepathy. I like to teach telepathy because it's the forerunner to everything else.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think I've only done 2 speaking engagements in my life. Matter of fact, I know it's only been 2. Just because I'd rather sit behind a mic and talk to somebody. Of course, I'm retired myself, basically. I'm 100% disabled from the VA. But I do this show 5 days a week and everything like that. So I work probably about 30 hours a week. And that includes hosting the show. So I'm not really retired in a sense, but I am. But I've done a speaking engagement with David Oman at the Stan Lee Kamikaze Expo in Los Angeles, just because he had his movie there, and we talked about the paranormal and about the hauntings at his house. And then with another guy that was eventually a co-founder of the paranormal team that I was part of, we went to a college out in Claremont, I believe it was, and spoke to some of the college students about the paranormal and different types of things. I mean, he covered more of the equipment and how to do an investigation, whereas I went over the abilities, the psychic, empathic abilities side of things. So, I mean, I really never really got into really speaking about the subject other than talking about it on the show, but I'd rather let people that are doing this more full time talk about it than me.
Yeah, I like teaching. I get a lot of pleasure out of it when I would give my ESP classes or tarot, watching people go just surprise themselves and feel so much more connected and confident in what they're seeing and feeling, and teaching them the difference between when you do feel something, you can bring it up to your sixth, eye, your middle eye, you can bring it up to your sixth chakra. You can learn how to interpret it. A lot of times people that are feeling empathic or clairsentient, they have a difficult time putting it into words. So I just love teaching, and I'd like to do more of it. We used to do it, of course, a lot in person, but now I'm doing it on Zoom.
Yeah.
And that's okay, too.
Now how...
We've even done some seances in Zoom.
Yeah. Now, how do you go about teach them? Because, like me, I've had people ask me, well, can you teach me how to open my third eye and everything like that? Or I've had people ask me, how did you get so strong with your abilities to go into a place that's got that darker entity and not be afraid and be able to chase them out? And I'd say it doesn't happen overnight, and I'm pretty sure you mentioned the same thing about something like that.
Oh yeah, of course, and you have mentioned that you, and I do too, protect yourself before you go into spirit communication or any particular location and like that. And so I teach them that. When I was learning the tarot back in 1970s, that was never taught. It wasn't. Nobody was talking about it, teaching it. Any of my teachers. So I knew that when I started teaching classes, that was one of the first things I wanted to teach people. Mm-hmm. How do you protect yourself? How do you not let the other people that don't believe in it get to you? How do you stay safe? How do you stay? And that's really important. So all my classes that I would teach about developing include that.
Yeah, and of course, like me, I tell people there's a long process. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not even going to happen in a week. It's going to take, like me, it took me several years just to get to where I'm at.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
But like anything, you have to practice. You have to understand the craft and everything like that. And the way I started telling people how to open the third eye, of course, I tell people, first, you're going to have to learn how to protect yourself with the white light before you open any doorway, because if you open that doorway, you better be prepared to close it too. Because otherwise,
absolutely,
they're going to come through. Like I mentioned about the Ouija board, it's not bad, but a lot of people think, even with the good intent put into it, you're opening that doorway. But a lot of people, even they're putting that good intent, if they just want to talk to their loved ones, they're leaving that door open and they don't know how to close it. And it just allows that darker stuff to come through. And that's what happened to me in 92. But I tell people, first you got to learn this. Learn how to protect yourself. Then the way I work on opening the third eye, and this is just my way of doing it. Everybody I know has got a different way of doing it. But I do a lot of meditation. Like, of course, now I can't, it's hard to do it here in the city. But when I lived out in the country, out in California, just south of Riverside, out by Hemet, I lived out in the country, and I would go out and sit out in the middle of the yard and listen to the sounds around me, because it was pretty much quiet. Unless there was an ambulance going on the highway, but other than that, it was pretty quiet. So what I would do is I would sit out there hours on hours and just listen to the sound, and then I would work on cutting one sound out at a time, and not the same day either. Like I would do 1 week where I would meditate, just sit out there, relax, listen to the sound. Next week I would sit out there, do the same thing, but I would work on, say, like the wind's blowing, the birds are chirping, crickets are making noises, whatever. And one of those sounds I would cut out. I would just be like, put it out of my mind and say, I don't hear it. And do that week by week. And like I said, it's not a overnight process. It could take years, I mean, depending on your abilities.
Yeah, I mean, I think of when my readings first start, how I started out. I look back now, and it seems elementary to me. You know, my reputation was built on my ability to predict what was going to happen to people's lives. And then in time, through my own spiritual development and my practice of the yoga and the meditation and all of that, I began to realize I don't want to just read like that. I want to really read about the person. And, you know, when people would ask me, will I have a love? Will I have money? And I was like, well, why aren't you? Why are you not doing it? So I realized I changed my readings. My mother said, oh my God, but what if people don't come to you? You know, I never advertised ever for readings. People came from word of mouth. I never took anybody that said, I don't know how I found you. I would not see them. They had to have the name of the recommendation of the person. And I was busy all the time for many years. And then I began to realize I want to teach people how to do this. I don't want people to just wait for me to tell them what was going to happen.
Yeah,
and so I changed my way of reading.
Yeah, I think...
and remained successful.
Yeah, I think it was my guest last night. I can't remember which one it was. But mentioned about... It might have been last night, might have been the night before. But anyways, talking about giving people the option to learn their own abilities and everything like that, so they don't have to really come to us, because there's always going to be people that come to people like me and you for our abilities because of what we know. Of course, there's always going to be the fakes out there too, but like you mentioned, the word of mouth, it if somebody gets what they... And my guest last night mentioned this. Not every time we're going to give you the message that you really want to hear. It just don't happen. I mean, sometimes the Spirit's going to tell us something different or give us an image and we have to interpret that. But but if the client is happy with what their message is, whether it was what they wanted to hear or not, then they're going to go out and tell other people that this person's good at what they do. They were spot on and everything like that, and people are going to come to you. Now, you mentioned you've been out of the private practice and everything like that. So, did you have your own set up your own shop and everything, or?
Yeah, I did it out of my home, and then I went and I rented. I had 3 different spaces. The last space I had, I called it the Metaphysical Center because not only did I see clients, but I was teaching there. I would have guest speakers come in, and I was doing really well. You know, I just started to just kind of burn out. From doing so many responsibilities. One thing that I have learned in my older age is accept help. You know, I mean, I was doing everything: the mailings, the readings, the classes, the janitor work. So, you know, there was various spots I went to, and I liked it for a lot of years.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel with...
to just close shop.
I think that's kind of how I feel sometimes with my radio show, because not only am I the host, I'm also the booking agent, the sound engineer, the producer, the promotion crew, the webmaster. Something that a radio station has 20 people to do, but I get it done because I love to do it. It's something I love to do. Now, I did get burnt out myself in the paranormal field. Like I said, 30 years in the field. Yes, there's always something new to learn. There's always going to be something to learn because nobody knows all the answers. We don't even know a lot of times what happens to us after we die. Because we're not really, unless you have a near-death experience, you're not really coming back to tell everybody, unless you're telling the psychic or somebody about it. You're not really telling anybody where do you go, what happened to you, everything like that. So each belief system, like Wiggins, we believe, we go to a place called the Summerlands. Which could be considered heaven and stuff like that. And I bring that up because I try to incorporate everything, and I don't know if you do this, but try to incorporate everything to where it's more understandable between different religions. Like, I'll mention, like, I believe in light entities and dark entities rather than saying angels and demons. Well, if you look at it, it can be construed as angels and demons because light entities, angels, dark entities, demons. So, I mean, it's just a matter, and that's how I help people understand this, is because that way they're more open to understanding rather than questioning everything that I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, and I say in my book, How to Talk with Spirits, I say, whether you believe in God or Buddha or, I go through the whole list. It's all energy. We're attached to energy. And that's the whole rhythm and vibrations that are going on around us. And really not look at it from any one religious sort of perspective. Rather say, keep an open mind. You can put in whatever religious belief you want. There are entities that want to help us. They're spirits, and you can call them an angel or guide or however you want to call them. Mm-hmm. They're there. You're connected to them, and again, telepathically. How do you pray? I tell them, well, it's telepathic. Mm-hmm. You're praying to an entity, and you're having a conversation, hopefully, prayer, meditation. It's all done through energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now, that brings up a thought, and I want to see how, because I like asking my guests devil's advocate questions, if you will, like to kind of throw them off their game a little bit.
Well, thanks for the warning.
Yeah. But before I get into that, I wanted to ask you how you handled stuff like this, because there's been plenty of times that I've run into the people that I love to call the Bible thumpers, where everything is their way or no way.
Well, we're going to hell, right?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people, I tell them that I practice witchcraft, or I tell them I do paranormal investigations, and a lot of times I get, well, you're messing with the devil, or there's no such thing as ghosts and spirits, and I just turn the Bible back on them, because I'm like, okay, well, if I'm practicing Satanism and working with the devil, well, let me ask you something. Does the Bible not say, he without sin cast the first stone, or judge not lest you be judged yourself? They shut up real quick.
Yes. If they would just really read their Bible again.
Yeah, or if they mention, like, there's no ghosts and spirits, I'll be like, okay, well, what was Jesus referred to as the Holy Ghost or Holy Spirit? So there's your ghost spirit.
It used to be the ghost. In the Catholic Church, it was the ghost, and then they changed it to the spirit.
Yeah, but I mean, I just I did it both ways, so that way no matter what denomination of religion they were, they would kind of get it, but it would shut them up.
Yeah, I think anybody that has any religion they want, I'm glad if they find solace in it. I'm happy that they can rejoice in it, and there's no reason that they should act like I am wrong to have my own practice.
Yeah, like I got
There's no reason.
I got friends that are Christian. They're involved in Christian work and stuff like that. They really don't go to the church that much, but they do like fellowships and everything like that. But they actually were open to understand and listen to my religion, understand what my practice is, because every religion has a higher deity, whether it be God, Gaia, Buddha, no matter what religion, they have that higher deity that they'll call God, that higher power. And it's just, like I mentioned earlier, it's just a matter of wording. And it's basically all the same thing. It's just a matter of wording. And I tried to explain that to a lot of people because it opens the conversation. It opens the discord to talk about things and discuss it rather than saying, I'm right, you're wrong.
Yes. Yeah,
So,
where's the mercy? I mean, I've had people say, well, I told you I grew up in a very strict Catholic house. I had a household. We went to church all the time. As a matter of fact, my parents used to talk about these American Catholics. They go to church whenever they want because they came from another country, and you were devoted to your religion. And when I started coming out about what I was doing, I took quite a bit from my family. Not so much my sisters, but certainly from my family. That a brother, my father, working with the devil. Do you still believe in God? Well, I have a better relationship with God and Jesus because I feel more connected now to these deities. Mm-hmm. And so, I've been called everything. Phil, I've been called every name there is to my face, by relatives and people I thought that were friends, and you just have to move on, I guess. Whatever.
Now, what is that? Now, you mentioned that place in the documentary earlier, but what is that documentary series that you're part of? Was it kind of intel?
Yeah. Was it what? I'm sorry.
I think I might have cut you off on the name, but what does it all entail? Like, as far as like, does it document ghost sightings and stuff like that, and the paranormal team goes in, like you mentioned first, and then you come in later, or how's it work?
Well, that's how it works. It started out when the producer, as I said, her name is Jing, she was at State College here in San Francisco, and it started out as a class project. So she got some people to go along with her, and they, in the beginning, of course, it looked very much like a class project. And what she was doing, documentary, she wanted to do more historical sightings within San Francisco. And then it kind of expanded out. It was historical buildings, historical streets. We went through the streets one place. I gave her information. She had to go down to the main library. She had to go through all kinds of records to find out that I was right about so much of what was in an area and what happened there. And it took her a long time. She spends a lot of time researching. And she started that. She ended up hooked up with the people that went in paranormal with all the equipment. And that's how she got going. And so she had there were different mediums that went in, and I guess they were okay. And then she had me go in. It was like, wow, you know what you're doing. I said, oh, I know what I'm doing. Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, me personally, I would love, I was going to college, and then depression started sitting in, and I just could not keep up with the classes and everything like that. But I was going to school for radio, television, film, and all I wanted to really do, I didn't really want to get the degree on all that. I mean, it would be nice, but I just needed help with the marketing aspect because I knew everything else with radio, internet radio. I just suck at the marketing aspect of things, but
Yeah, that's a hard one.
And I just never had the time to do a lot of marketing. But
Well, that's a whole, part of it that people don't understand. You put stuff out of there, unless you have somebody doing your marketing, it's really difficult.
yeah. But I mean, I know people that are in independent music artists that do their own marketing and everything like that. And it took them a while to get there. So I know I'll get there. It's just going to take me a while, but it would be nice to have help on that. But I'll get there. But like I said, I went to school for television, film, and radio, and a few years back, I started writing a book on the paranormal dark side. I was going to help write it to help people understand the darker side of things and how to avoid it and everything like that. Of course, I never got finished with it. I started working on a screenplay because I love horror movies. And when I started school, I was like, "Ooh, I'm going to become a horror movie film director." And eventually I'll get both of those things written. It's just, right now I'm doing what I love to do, talking to people like yourself and other guests and getting their take on things and helping people understand there's no one side to everything.
Yes.
And,
there's layers.
Yeah, and then of course, I believe that's what you're doing with your teaching and everything on the paranormal, correct?
Yes. Yeah, teaching people and validating them, and more people are so aware of it. Now, back when I started, for one thing, you didn't have an internet.
I remember going to the library.
It wasn't open unless you were with a certain group of people that believed in it. Now on the internet, you can find a reader, or paranormal, a medium. Everything's right there. Mm-hmm. People weren't opened at all like they are now.
Yeah, like when I started out in the field, unless you knew who like Ed and Lorraine Warren were, you were not really too much up on the paranormal. Nowadays, I mean, it's like you said, everywhere. But I mean, we had to go to the library to research a location, dig through several books. I forget the name of those computers with those
encyclopedias.
Like
encyclopedias, where they have everything.
Well, it's like a film type thing where it. You could go to like different newspapers and stuff like that. Some libraries still have
the reels. They use their own reels.
Yeah, and be like, okay, let's look at here, look there. You had to.
Well, even
go ahead.
Even near-death experiences. I mean, nobody talked about it. In 1978, Dr. Raymond Moody came out, and he was like just his scientific world was really negative toward him. But it was after that book that people started saying, well, that kind of happened to me. Nowadays, there's many books out on near-death experiences. Yeah. So, again, there's enlightenment. It's even in our Wiccan community. If I ever mentioned to anybody that I was a witch and I did certain things, oh, my God, you'd be burned at the stake.
Yeah. But I want to talk about that in a moment here, but we're going to take our last commercial break of the night. But we'll be right back with my guest, June Ahern, as we talk about parapsychology and the paranormal and so much more. We'll be right back.
Knew which road I would go down. Thought I could do it all on my own. But then you came around. When fate has its way and things fall into place, all the
Do you need music for your radio show, podcast, or YouTube channel but need a music license to play it on your show? Well, go to artlist.io and check out the plans they have. They have 3 plans to choose from: personal, unlimited, and enterprise. All the music that you hear on the show is from Artlist, and there is a banner ad on the show's website. Check it out today. Do you love the strange, unusual, and weird unexplained mysteries? Do you like reading about the paranormal and other happenings? Well, I have the website for you, unexplainedmysteries.com. On there you will find so much, such as the latest news and articles, forums, news with video, and so much more. That's unexplained-mysteries.com, or you can click on the banner ad on the show's website to take you right there. Do you love history? Do you wonder what happened on this day in history? Well, check out history.com/this day in history and find out what happened on this day in recorded history. You can also click on the image on the Talk of the Night website under This Day in History and check out one of the many things that happened. The show's website lists a different event in history every day, so check it out today. Call into the show, Skype Talk in the Night, or by phone at 817-717-1280. Now back to Talk in the Night with your host, Paranormal Phil. Okay, and we are back with my guest, June Ahern, as we talk about parapsychology and the paranormal. Now, before we get back into that with her, I want to mention, again, the phone lines are open. Use the Skype name Talk in the Night, or by phone at 817-717-1280. Also, if you go to Spreaker.com, sign up for a free account. It don't cost a dime. You don't have to record anything. And then when you click on the live show for Talking the Night, you can there's a chat bar that you can type in there. Join the chat, discuss the show, ask questions of my guests, and everything like that. And I will be paying attention to I always pay attention to the chat. I always interact with my listeners and everything like that, because without my guests, without my listeners, I wouldn't have a show. I mean, I would, but it would be kind of boring just sitting here talking to myself. But let's get back into it with June. Now, you mentioned about witches and everything like that before the break, and I know it wouldn't affect you because being a female and everything like that, but a lot of times when I tell people that I'm a witch, they're like, no, you're a warlock or something like that. And I'm like, do you understand what the word warlock means? It means betrayer. Do I look like a betrayer to you? I basically say I am, even though which has kind of been referred to as female, there are still male witches. And, And, I mean, it doesn't make a difference. I mean, but everybody's got this belief system that women are witches, men are warlocks, and stuff like that, or shamans. And of course, there are shamans out there, but and people that call themselves warlocks. But as far as me being Wiccan, I'm a witch. Now, speaking of witches, one place that I still would love to go, and I don't know if you ever have the inclination to ever go there too, is Salem, Massachusetts.
Been there.
Oh, you've been there.
Been
Okay.
there. Yeah, in this lifetime and another lifetime, but I have been there, and it's pretty touristy now. I did go to my friend who lives back there. I went to a grave site there, the old grave site, and there was a photograph. It was really weird. I love graveyards and cemeteries. I go there all the time. Anywhere I go, I find one and I visit. And I was laying down. I like to lay down and act like I'm dead and have people take pictures of me. And my legs, I had jeans on, and from my knees down, there were pants on like kind of like knickerbockers, where it ends at the knee.
Yeah.
And there were like white socks pulled up. And I had tennis shoes on. And do they still say tennis shoes? Well, anyway, I had tennis shoes on, and they were like weird boots on. It was like a spirit was laying on top of me. It was a very strange photograph. And it wasn't superimposed because what was there was nothing that I was wearing in any of my photographs.
Yeah, and of course the East Coast has a lot of activity, whether it be from the Revolutionary War to the Civil War, and everything like that. And again, I love history. I think that's helped me quite a bit understanding history, especially the Civil War in the Old West. And just because I know one of my past lives, I was somebody of more prominent nature in the Old West, because I had the old gambler, because I've done past life regression before, and I had that old gambler style vest on the people like Wyatt Earp would wear and stuff like that were more prominent in society than some of the drunken cowboys that would be passing through a town. So, I mean, history has been a big thing. But, just because I'm a witch, I don't know why, but I just want to kind of go there and visit where the superstition about witches came from. And, you talked about in your bio about superstitions and myths and everything like that. So, have you talked about any kind of superstitions and myths in the paranormal field and everything like that?
Well, no. I can't say that I've talked too much about superstitions. Is something that you and I were talking about, like people that do paranormal work, they're evil, or, they were so much in different cultures and society at one time in history. Kind of before Christianity, probably. It was much more accepted. Of course, it wasn't always great things that was done. The St. Patrick's Day. Here's the thing about the St. Patrick's Day, that the Catholics came in and I'm not opposed to any Catholics. I don't want people to think that I'm against any one religion. I think whatever you want to do, as long as you're joyful and it brings you peace, wonderful.
Yeah.
Chase the snakes out. St. Patrick chased the snakes out of Ireland. Well, what he did is he chased the Druids out, the pagans.
Yeah.
Religions would go in and they would kill whole villages. We talk about terrorists now. One time the Christians were terrorists. They killed people that did not, beheaded them, burned them, everything that didn't go to their religion. The same thing with witches. Who started all that? Well, it was during that 14th, 15th century, they started calling the herbalists of the town, the man and woman, the wise people, the alchemists. They started, because if they weren't Catholics and they were pagans, that's how it started, calling them witches and getting really derogatory. The name witch became a derogatory name.
Yeah.
Wiccan, of course, is the bending tree, but that's how it started.
Yeah, and of course, I got Irish heritage myself. Actually, one of my family members signed the Declaration of the Independent Republic of Ireland. So his name is on, one of my relative ancestors' name is on that document. But I think that's where my love of being a Wiccan and everything and practicing witchcraft came from, because like I talked with my guest last night about how a lot of the Christian faith, a lot of holidays and everything like that came from the pagans. And a lot of people don't understand that. Mabon, fall, the fall equinox. Or like Samhain for Halloween. It all came from Christian holidays, Yule, Christmas, winter solstice. I mean, it all traces back to that century, that date and time in history. And a lot of people think, oh, well, ours is the one that started it out. No, you gotta look at history and understand it a little more, that you're not the one that started it. And maybe they didn't even start this stuff. Maybe it came from somewhere else. I dig into the rabbit hole a lot on mainly political and conspiracy things, but even with stuff like this, and the paranormal and stuff related like that, I mean, I think, well, could all of this stuff come from, like, Atlantis? I mean, it's just that possibility. I love learning about this stuff and talking about it, because it opens that conversation. Somebody might know something more than me.
Yeah, well, archaeologists and historians say that there was Atlantis. There was a place. They do know where it was somewhat located. It's not that far out there. It's not like certain people should just believe it. It's historically a fact that there was a place that had, they figure, like a huge earthquake. They had fires. It could have been a volcano. I watch all that stuff on television too. I'm really into history.
Yeah. And like I said,
we're not that strange.
Yeah. Well, nowadays it's more open to understanding it, but like me and you both said, back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, even early 90s, it was not widely talked about, and people kind of shunned you for being the way you were.
Yes, absolutely.
But
they absolutely did.
But we're
especially the Christians.
Yeah, but we're close to running out of time. And I mean, I write enough questions the last 5-hour shows, but I do that so that way if I'm going in one direction and then something else comes up, I like, okay, I know I got this question here. I can go here and ask this question and take it in a different direction if I want to or anything like that. But I want to ask this question because it brings up something that I've done myself, and I want to see if you ever done something like this before yourself. And you do readings and everything like that. Have you helped people on the other side move on or cross over after connecting them with their loved ones?
I have those, and I have encouraged the people asking, the relatives and friends, I've asked them to please pray for them, light them a candle, wish them well, especially when you're dealing with people that had sudden death, an accident, or murder, or maybe a drug overdose. They sometimes, the spirit gets so confused and they don't want to leave. I've certainly done that quite a bit, and not only help people with spirits, but I actually have gotten letters communicated when people used to write letters. Remember those days? And or people that said, before I saw you, I was very near to committing suicide. I've had people say I was so depressed until the reading. And it's not to make myself, I feel I am a channel of a divine. You know, I'm here, if I could be instrumental and bring you something that is positive and remind you of who you are. So not only spirits, but people, living physical people in this dimension, I've been told I've helped their life, improved it, giving them hope, giving them a chance, showing them there's something else.
Yeah. Now, like me, my experience was probably the weirdest one that I've ever experienced. But there was a private location where people use the Ouija board, and of course I chased that one out with no problem. But afterwards, we were in a room in Montclair, a small 12 by 10 by 12 room, I think it was, and the house was on the market to be sold, so there was no electricity in the house. It was 105 during the day at 5 p.m., and there was about 15 of us in the room, and we're trying to help the family connect with the grandfather that passed away in that room. And I opened up things for him to come through so that way he could use the instruments or talk with his loved ones. And as soon as it was over, I opened up that doorway to where he could go on into the afterlife and have a happier, instead of being stuck there. And as soon as I did that, I mean, people standing across the room from me, at least 10 feet away, probably 8 to 10 feet away, felt this cold blast of air like it was an air conditioner had turned on. And again, no electricity in the house whatsoever. All the doors and windows were closed, and 15 of us in that room. And the temperature dropped like 30 degrees when I did that. Now, have you ever experienced anything like that when you help somebody pass away?
Oh, yeah. Well, not about helping, but I have experienced that coldness when there shouldn't have been a reason for any temperature change at all.
Okay. But, all right. So we're almost out of time. Let's get into where people can find out more information about you and the books that you have, which we never got into. I apologize about that. But you can mention your books and everything and where they can find all the information about you and them.
Well, my books are on Amazon or any of your favorite bookstore, and you can find out all about me on my webpage, which is June, my name, Ahern, or Ahern, AHERN.com. And on there, I have my latest radio interviews, or I have updates about the movie, classes that I'm going to be giving. I've kind of taken a little break from those, but I'll put dates up later. I mean, everything that you'd want to find, go to my blog, blah, blah, blah. Everything's on there at juneahern.com.
Okay, now what about that SF coaching and consultant? Because I do have it linked up on the Talk of the Night website under your name and everything like that. But is that...
my metaphysical coaching?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, that's at SF. Well, yes, you can get it through that page, but you can also go to SF Coaching, like San Francisco, sfcoaching.com. I used to do life coaching, professionals, work a lot with, corporations and such. But now I like to just do metaphysical coaching. People that have questions about experiences they've had or how to develop it, how to grow it, that is on there too. So that's the best way to find me and read about me. And all you have to do is Google June Ahern, AHERN, and all kinds of stuff will come up about my books, about my work, all of that.
Okay, now do you still do readings or?
No, I'm not doing any more private readings. Matter of fact, I just got an email today with somebody who lives locally close to me asking me if I would come and do an investigation in their house, or feeling things and that. So if it's a really interesting case, I feel interested, I might go and do something for people. This Friday at the local tea house, I'm doing teacup readings. It's a party, and that's fun for me. So I do something like that, If it's fun for me and I like it and I'm interested, I'll do it.
Okay, just the reason why I asked is because if you did still do readings, I wanted to let them know where they can find out how to get a hold of you to do a reading and everything like that. So that's why I asked the question.
But I do have some really great readers that I have vetted myself that I recommend. They're really good. I actually have readings off of myself at times. So if somebody wanted to get a hold of me and say, do you know somebody? I have a great medium. Absolutely. I love her. She's so talented and so humble that I recommend her. I recommend very few readers will I actually recommend. I'm really picky. I'm really picky when it comes to readings.
Okay. All right. I want to thank you for coming on the show, sharing your experience, and talking about what we all talked about tonight and everything like that. I wish we could have more time to talk about all the questions I have, but after 2 hours of sitting in this chair, it hurts. Well, actually 3 hours, because I spent an hour beforehand doing sound checks.
Well, thank you, Phil. It was a pleasure.
All right, and so for my listeners, tomorrow night, here's what's coming up. Up on the Talking Tonight website, you can find under upcoming shows. We're going to be talking about, with Angela Thomas as we talk about remote viewing. We'll be talking about getting into the work she has done with criminal case tracking missing people, along with teaching classes on telepathy and retrocognition. So we'll talk about all that tomorrow. And then, of course, Friday night is open lines where you can call in, share your stories, experiences, or ask a question about the paranormal or anything else that the show talks about. Now, at the top of the Talking Tonight website, there is links for all my guests this week, banner ads there. Click on them, check out my guests, help support them as well as me. Support the Talking Tonight merch store by clicking on the store tab on the show's website. It would help me greatly. And also, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on all the show's social media sites: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Discord, and, of course, YouTube. So, again, until tomorrow night, when I welcome my guest, Angela Thomas, and, of course, I will mention this real quick, that I will have next week's guest up there sometime tomorrow, hopefully, for next week and everything like that. So until tomorrow night, when I welcome my guest, Angela Thomas, as we talk about remote viewing, which should be another interesting topic, and I will be bringing up my things of remote viewing and seeing things beforehand with her as well, as I did tonight. So until then, I shall see you on the dark side. Good night from Talking the Night.
Late at night, darkness has fallen. Turn on the radio, and you hear him talking. Listening to what he has to say, all about the paranormal.